Good evening, I'm Tanya Cunningham. I am a parent and also the president of the Clarkston Coalition for Youth. I am joined here by Lauren, who is part of CAYA, which is Clarkston Area Youth Assistance, and also Justin, who is, what's your title?
So I am a prevention program coordinator as well as the county's designated youth tobacco use representative.
Yeah, that's his title.
All of it.
With the ACHC, which is Alliance Coalition for Healthy Communities. And that's who kind of like
The Alliance for short.
Yeah. He's new. But basically, they're our funder. So we have things that we have to do to meet a grant and to provide the programming that we do for everybody. And also, when is our May 1? May 10th. So we have an event May 10th, and that is on underage drinking. So, put that in here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Take it away, Justin.
Perfect. So it does not matter if there are 4 of us or if there are 40 of us. We are always going to have a good time when Justin is in the building. How does that sound, everybody? Sounds good. Perfect. So I am actually going to make sure that everybody can see in its entirety. And we are going to get this show on the road. And so today, I really want us to have a conversation. I don't want this to be a presentation because those get kind of impersonal. So us having a conversation about marijuana and sort of what it looks like, especially for our high school students and our teens and our children. So we always like to start off with housekeeping rules. Just making sure that we are silencing our phones and all of our devices, making sure that they don't go off. We know emergencies happen, but just making sure that we try our best to keep those as quiet as possible. Also, making sure that we manage our side conversation. I'm going to be interacting with you a lot. So there will be plenty of opportunity for everybody to talk. So just making sure that some side conversation is okay, but making sure that it is not disruptive and that it doesn't throw off the flow of our conversation. And last but certainly not least, participate. We always work, like I said, it does not matter if there are 4 of us or 40 of us, we're gonna have us a good time today. All right, so without further ado, are we ready to get started? Yes. Yeah! I love it. I absolutely love it. So just really quickly, a little bit about us. As Tanya mentioned earlier, I am from the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities. So our goal is to work with all of our amazing community partners all across Oakland County and provide substance use prevention programming as well as mental and emotional wellness programming. So we work with kids from here to here, as well as our wonderful support systems, our wonderful schools, and our wonderful parents like you all today. So for our objectives today, we're going to learn the difference between THC and CBD. Of course, because we're talking about marijuana. We're going to learn about high potency THC and sort of what that looks like. We're going to learn about some signs to look for. And when I say signs, I really mean things that kind of get your mind thinking or things for you to pay attention to, just in case you may think that your child is using marijuana or if they may be thinking about using marijuana. And last but certainly not least, we're going to learn some tips for us having those real deal conversations, those conversations that we absolutely that we may dread, but they are actually not as bad as they may seem. So really quickly, I always like to start off with this little fact here. And this fact states that people who use marijuana before the age of 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely to develop marijuana use disorder. Raise your hand if you knew that fact. Raise your hand if that fact surprises you. Perfect. Yes, somebody says, no, it doesn't surprise me at all. And that is A-okay. And speaking of marijuana use disorder, that is defined by the CDC as excessive use of marijuana. So it is really when folks are using marijuana to the point that they feel like they need it to function and to go through their daily life, to go through everyday tasks. In terms of what is marijuana, I'm sure we are all familiar. However, just a quick recap of it is marijuana really comes from the cannabis plant. And there are over 500 chemicals. Now, does that surprise you? There are over 500 chemicals in the marijuana plant. And, THC and CBD are the most common. So in terms of CBD, CBD is the second most potent, most prevalent. However, it is not as active as our first. However, it is non-psychoactive. So it is really what is used to make our folks relaxed. It is really the thing that makes folks feel really, really calm. However, our most active, the one that is psychoactive, the psychoactive compound in marijuana is THC. And when it comes to THC, the thing that it does is it binds with the receptors in our brains, and it binds with those receptors that control how we feel, how we engage with our emotions, how we engage with other people, how just we function on a normal basis, right? And so this is really what gives people that high feeling. So remember, CBD is the second most active compound, and it is non-psychoactive. However, it really gives you that relaxed feeling. And THC is the most active compound, and it is what gives you that high feeling. So, now let's check, fact check. Which one of these compounds produces the high feeling? Raise your hand if it's CBD. Raise your hand if it's THC. Oh my God, I have a bunch of scholars in the building. Absolutely, it is THC. Again, it is important that we stress. THC is the compound that allows for that high feeling, and it is, again, that most potent compound in marijuana. So when it comes to high potency THC, the thing of it is THC is so much more potent today than it was even 10 to 20 years ago, right? You have one joint today that is as powerful, or it could be as powerful as almost 18 joints from 1975. So that's really showing the change in the potency of the substances, of the chemicals in marijuana. And it is, again, what is creating that extra high feeling, right? Because if it's more potent and if it has the power of multiple, it, again, can lead to a really high feeling. So when it comes to high potency THC, these levels can range anywhere from 70% to 99%. That's potent, y'all. It's potent, really high. And this includes, and as far as the marijuana products that are high in potency, these include things like dabs. These include things like pens, the vape pens, or some of the different things that you may see, as well as edibles.
What are dabs?
What are dabs? Oh my goodness. My first question is, what are dabs? Guess what? Dabs. This is when you heat a really, really strong cannabis concentrate. So it's when people have those extracted pieces of cannabis and they heat it and they inhale the vapor. So it usually goes in sort of like a glass style thing, and it's heated up and it's really potent, and people inhale it. And the thing about this is it usually consists of some sort of oil or wax, and it is super, super potent. So it gives you that high feeling really, really quickly, and you only need a small amount, right? You only need to inhale just a little bit, because these dabs are chemicals, right? So you have all these things going and going and going and being inhaled in the body, which is, again, producing a really, really high feeling. In addition to that, actually, these are some examples of them. We have things like wax, they're called shatter, they're called batter, they're called so many different things. And these are some examples of what some of these dabs can look like. So, eyes open, everybody. So we keep our eyes open for our dabs, right? In addition to those, have you all ever seen vape pens? Yes, yes, yes. So this is another really, really common item, and it's a cartridge that is filled with a THC concentrate. In addition to that THC concentrate, it is also mixed in with several other toxic chemicals. And they work the same way as dabs, right? It's a little bit more convenient. And the reason that I say it's a little bit more convenient is because when it comes to the dab, there's the process of taking it and heating it up. A vape pen or any sort of pen can look like this clicker here. And it's super convenient. It can blend in with things, and all you have to do is just whip it out. So you also have to really, really be careful with that. And the liquid, what is inhaled or what is taken in, is the same chemicals. It's the same thing as what's being inhaled in the dab. So these are some examples, things like these vape pens, things that look like this. I'm sure you all are looking at this like, looks like he may have a pen in his hand, but I do not, everybody. But you have things like this, and obviously the most common of those is probably the Breeze pen that I'm sure a lot of folks have seen. In addition to those, we also have edibles. So edibles are cannabis-based food and drink. I'm going to emphasize that they are cannabis-based food and drinks, because a lot of times we don't think that edibles can be drinks, but they can be. And these are these products, and these are the things that take a little bit of time to get folks going. You may have, you see them and they come in the form of different drinks, different juices, different types of sweets that look inconspicuous, things like candy, things like cookies, things like brownies, things like cake, right? And these symptoms for an edible, when somebody is actually consuming an edible and it goes in their body, the effects last longer than actually smoking that marijuana. How many people knew that? I'm coming with all the facts, y'all. I told y'all we're gonna have a good time today. So now I want us to do a little bit of a pop quiz. So I want you all to cancel that on the screen for me. Something popped up. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I know I said some folks said they could see 10 out of 10. I got one 8 out of 10. But I want us to try to look at these as best as we can. And I want you to raise your hand if you think that the first pack of Skittles is the regular pack. Raise your hand if you think the second pack of Skittles is the regular pack. So I heard someone say, they said, I have no idea. And the thing is, they look quite similar, but a lot of the times, some of the packaging on some of the items, some of the candies, kind of gives it away, right? So if you can see here, you have this Terry Share, you have the small little cannabis logos on there, and it also shows right down here. Yes, it gives some sort of, yes. Oh, I wish the camera could have caught your face. It was, yes, that's true. You can see some of the labels, you can see some of the warnings, and you also get the notification as well because it may be a little bit higher in calories as well, so you can always check to see those. However, when they come out of the package, they may be a little bit more difficult to spot. So now I'm gonna give you a second pop quiz question. This is a lot harder, right? Raise your hand if you think that number 1 is the regular gummy. Raise your hand if you think that number 2 is the regular gummy. Raise your hand if you're like, they look exactly the same. I can't tell which is which. I don't know what's what.
They don't look the same, but they just look like gummies.
They just look, exactly. And that's the idea behind them. They're so inconspicuous, right, that they can blend in with regular pieces of candy. So for my folks who had their hand raised for number 1, that is actually the regular gummy. Yes, congratulations. And then again, remember how I said drinks can also be edibles? Things like juices, things like slushes or some of these frozen beverages. Can you all tell me which of these are the regular drinks, right? Raise your hand if you think option 2 are the regular drinks. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that option 1 is the regular drink. So, those of you who selected option 1, I'm just going to knock this out again. Those of you who have selected option 1 are correct. And what we've all been saying is, oh my goodness, it is so hard to tell the difference between those. And I think that's really the point of this exercise, to show you all just how common they can be and how easily they can blend in to everyday snacks, everyday foods, everyday drinks. So now let's talk about the impact of usage, right? When folks are using marijuana, especially our kids, right? Because remember, they're younger, their brains have not yet fully developed, so it has an adverse effect on them as they grow and develop. Lack of motivation is one of the key things, right? You have folks with that high potency and that thing that gives you sort of that relaxed, high-ish feeling. You lose interest in things that you may typically like, right? Your grades may be dropping. If your student plays a sport, right? Their performance may be dropping. Their performance may be dwindling. It may not be as good as it was before. Or, even though this is kind of common with a lot of teenagers, anybody knows some, teenagers, it's that I don't care attitude, that just shrug everything off, right? You know what I'm saying? They just say, whatever, I don't care about anything. But that can also be a sign of that lack of motivation and showing that they may potentially be using it, or these are some of the impacts that come with using marijuana. Mental health disorders, again, using high potency THC can potentially cause a mental health disorder. Why? Because this increased potency and taking this at higher doses increases or can potentially increase the anxiety that one has, and it doesn't ease those symptoms contrary to popular belief, right? So it really increases, it excites folks who are anxious, and it increases their anxiety. In addition to that, things like psychosis or schizophrenia can be brought on or made worse, especially if the student has a family history of some of these diseases or some of these conditions. So gateway drugs, right? A gateway drug is a drug that can be habit forming. Not always, right? And so when we think about things like marijuana, marijuana is often considered a gateway drug, right? Or it is a gateway drug. It's actually one of the most common, and it is one of the most common in conjunction with utilizing alcohol and utilizing prescription medicine. So, caution, 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 caution. Here are some signs to look for, right? Just in case if you think your teen or you think your child or someone who you know who's under the age of 18 may be looking to use marijuana or maybe using marijuana, these are some things that you can kind of key in on, right? The first is smell it, right? You know, if somebody is smoking marijuana, a lot of the times it's really, really, really easy to smell them. You know, you can smell it on their clothes, it gets stuck and it lingers, right? But this is not true for all marijuana products, right? Because if you think about things like those edibles, you think about those drinks, you even think about a vape pen.
Even the pens do not.
Even the pens that do not have smells, this can be kind of tricky. You also have those eyes. How many of you tell your kids, hey, look me in my eyes? That's how you test to see if they're telling the truth, right? Exactly. This is another thing that you can look out for, seeing if they have really red or bloodshot eyes. This is, again, caused by that frequent eye droppage and everything, and it can potentially show or indicate that someone is using marijuana. Increased hunger. Do you all know what we call increased hunger as a result of smoking marijuana? Yes, this is called the munchies, everybody. Be on the lookout for the munchies or really, really odd cravings. So if you may have someone who doesn't eat a lot, but the next thing you know, they want chips and cookies and cakes and burgers and everything, that may be a sign, right? They may have the munchies and they may potentially be utilizing marijuana. Dry mouth. So you may notice that a really, really sticky or sort of a dry sound when they talk, or if they have a really, really hard time swallowing, right? Because if they are smoking marijuana, it can potentially dry them out. It dries their mouth out. So that's another really common thing to look for, that dry mouth or sort of a sticky sound when they are talking. Mood changes, right? I know, again, these are teenagers, right? So mood changes are par for the course, right? It comes with being a teenager. However, if you really, really notice some drastic mood changes, or you feel them maybe start to be more withdrawn, more socially isolated, you feel them starting to be more secretive, or they're hiding things from you, these are some other potential signs, as well as things like being extremely aggressive or being uncharacteristically mean or upset. These are some things that may indicate a mood change as a result of utilizing marijuana. Use of incense. One thing that a teenager will try to do is cover their tracks, right? They are going to try to spray, they are going to try to open the window, they're going to fan it out, they're going to blow it out, they're going to push it out, they're going to open the vents, they're going to do everything, they're going to light incense, they're going to do everything they can to mask the smell, whether it is in their room, whether it's on their clothes, whether it's in their car. So that's another thing to be conscious of. And again, one thing that may be a little bit underrated that you don't think about is the actual paraphernalia, right? Wearing clothes or socks or things that have marijuana-based language on there, or the marijuana logo, or starting to have some of those tools that people use to consume or to inhale marijuana. So things like cookies right here, this is an actual brand, or ooze, things that are really indicative or in support of marijuana usage.
Also, don't some of the clothing have like hidden pockets too, like in the hats, or I think some of the sweaters?
That is actually new, but that is, everybody gets smarter, so I wouldn't doubt it, right? some places having potentially hidden pockets where you can just go and you can stash it is also something to be conscious of. So now we're going to transition into tips for not chastising, but having that conversation, right? Notice how I said because a lot of the times our gut reaction is to say, hey, no, and they get in trouble. But we're going to talk about how to potentially facilitate a conversation. Excuse me, everybody. Thank you. So I'm going to read this scenario for you all, and then we're going to kind of talk about what are some things you may do or how you may go about talking to your child. So you know that marijuana is not healthy for your teen, and you don't want them using it. However, as a teen, you know that they might be curious about it. So, excuse me, everybody. Took in too much air. But especially since you know that some of their peers may be using it, how do you go about talking to them? Any audience participation? What are some things you may do, or how may you approach this conversation?
I would think maybe asking them questions like, hey, what do you, I've heard about some marijuana use at school. Like, what do you think about that? What are you seeing? And trying to get their opinions and maybe fish like, hey, what are some of your classmates doing? Do you see stuff going on in the bathrooms? I'm kind of hearing about this. Like, what do you think? And try to just ask them questions, open-ended questions.
Excuse me, everybody. I'm recovering from a cold. All right, but that was actually a really good response, right? It is just sort of introducing them, talking with them. And notice I said talking with them, but not at them, right? It's not chastising. It's not lecturing them. It's really sitting them down, having that conversation, and asking them questions and how they can share their opinions. Excuse me. Again, for scenario 2. So recently in the news, you've seen a lot more stories about teens using marijuana and the harmful effects. So you're not sure if your child uses THC, but want to make sure that they aren't. How do you talk to them, again, about not using THC or not using marijuana?
For this, if it's something in the news, I would ask him, or have you heard about that? In the news that more and more teens are using marijuana. Is it something that you've seen around, or anybody has offered that to you? Or?
Yes, just really talking to them. And I like how you said, not showing them, hey, these are the bad things that happen, because we all know scare tactics do not work anymore, right? So making sure that they're able to sort of observe their friends and be able to have some open and honest conversations with you. And so they know to do things or not to do things that may potentially harm them. Scenario 3, you were looking through your child's car and you noticed a vape pen on the ground of the passenger side. You take it with you and you confront your child about it, and they tell you it's not theirs. That may be a response. I say, how do you respond? You say, I don't believe them. Thank you. You say, I do not believe them. What else? What are some other things you can say?
It's not mine.
It's not mine. They always say it's never theirs, right? That's that's what we always like to say.
I'm holding it for a friend.
I'm holding it for a friend. So those are some common responses you may get. And one of the things that you can do is you can be really clear that you disapprove this. Not doing it in a way where you're saying, hey, I know this is yours, and you're accusing them, but making sure that, and not using scare tactics, but steering away from shame and blame and really embracing having that open and honest conversation.
Also, just explaining if they got caught with that in their car, they're going to have to deal with it.
Yes, and also maybe potentially being honest about some of the conversations, not in a way to scare them, but in a way to make them think, right? In a way to make them think before they act.
And so with that, maybe asking them like, well, what do you think if it was police officer, here at the school and they do parking lot checks. What if they saw that in your front seat? Like, what do you think would happen? So not a scare tactic, but getting them to
Absolutely.
think, like, what do you think would happen? What
And
could
that's-
potentially happen if
Exactly,
someone
that
else
is
talks?
exactly correct. And that's always what we want to do. We want to make sure that we are giving them the tools to make the best decisions, to make healthy decisions, or teaching them what we believe are the right choices to make and making the right decisions. So that is absolutely true. Thank you so much. So one of the things you can always do is you can give your child a reason to trust you, right? Remember, this goes back to not being accusatory, but being open and honest and really being a safe space for them to confide in you, right? Because if you build that level of trust with them, they'll come talk to you about anything. So be there to pick them up if they're feeling down, and sometimes save the questions for a little bit later. So I'm going to play a video now for you all, and then we're going to have a little bit of dialogue about this.
The Youth Thrive protective and promotive factors are 5 essential elements that research has shown to help young people thrive, even in the face of adversity. 1. Knowledge of adolescent development. When parents, supportive adults, and young people themselves understand adolescence as a unique period of growth and change, they're better at figuring out what adolescents need. 2. Youth resilience. Young people are more likely to thrive if they have the tools to manage stress and challenges. 3. Concrete support in times of need. In order to thrive, a young person needs basic necessities like food and safe housing. Adults need to help young people learn how to advocate for themselves and expect to be treated with dignity when they do. 4. Social connections. Having trusting relationships with peers, adults, and communities help young people develop their skills and their sense of belonging. And 5. Cognitive and social emotional competence. When they have the skills and knowledge they need, young people form an independent identity, which leads to a satisfying adulthood. The 5 protective and promotive factors are a pathway to well-being and can help young people get the support they need to thrive. To learn more, visit cssp.org.
All right, so if you were able to hear that video, what did we think about that, and what do we kind of take away from that video? Absolutely. Yes, building trust is crucial to really having sort of those conversations and opening up that path or that dialogue or having that relationship with them for them to be able to come with you or come to you to talk about anything that may be going on. So when it comes to some protective factors, things that really prevent our youth from potentially utilizing substances, you have things like the adolescent development, right? Just what we're pouring into them and how they're developing and making sure that they are being poured into and having the ability to make really, really good decisions because we are imparting that wisdom into them and that knowledge into them. You also have youth resilience. Our youth, especially our youth of today, are extremely resilient. They can take a lot and bounce back from more, right? So they have this innate ability to be able to sort of take a licking and keep on ticking, as my grandmother would say, right? And then you also have just sort of some concrete support, making sure that we are building that foundation for them and supporting them in all the healthy things that they do. And when they don't, making sure that our support system is not chastising them, but again, having those open, honest conversations. And then again, social connections. How many people say, hey, I need to make sure I know my child's friends? That was something my mom always said. She said, who's your friend? Who's their parent? Who are their friends? What are their grandparents' names? Everything. She wanted the whole family tree going back to the 1800s, right? And so you have that, folks who are building these really, really strong support systems of friends who are not gonna peer pressure them into doing things that they don't wanna do or things that are, or making some really, really unhealthy or some bad decisions. And then again, cognitive and social emotional competence. Our children are a lot smarter than we think. They know a lot more than we think. And so giving them that space to be those intelligent little individuals that they are, and making sure that we are supporting them again and pouring into them so that they are emotionally intelligent. All right? So that concludes today's presentation. A little bit of a hiccup. However, things went pretty smoothly. So does anybody have any questions about any of the information? Or would anybody like to share any comments? They are welcome.
I started going through this little brochure that was over there. This one to keep for parents. And concretely, if you realize that your child is using marijuana, in there I think they say that to contact somebody for help.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, so if you are looking for some additional resources, especially as parents, right, because you may not always have the answers, right? Some of the resources that you can use are going to some of these websites, and I will provide these for you all and allow you all to take pictures of those and just really lean into these resources. But visiting various websites like teens.drugabuse.gov/parents, or visiting the SAMHSA helpline, or the National Helpline, which is a place where folks can call for some additional assistance and help. Or you can see me again, right? You can always have me come back out, or reaching out to the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities, or the Clarkston Coalition, or Clarkston Youth Assistance. There are so many great resources that are here in the community that are present, ready to help you.
So if I can add to that too, with Youth Assistance, we're a prevention program, and we have a couple branches of services, one of which is casework. So I'm the caseworker, and I work one-on-one with families to help address individual needs and concerns. And so I do get referrals from schools or parents with, concerns on marijuana use or vaping or many other issues too. Like, there's a wide range in the types of families that I work with. And so as a caseworker, I can do some short-term counseling and like skill building type counseling. I don't do therapy, but can help get families connected with therapy or connected with other resources that they might need. Do some learning activities and learning lessons with kids to help them learn more about maybe the risks of using substances and help them make a turnaround so they don't keep heading down that path. So Youth Assistance is a great resource. We do also have on the table a list of local counseling and agencies in the area too. So if your child's at a point that you think you need more intensive therapy and help with substance abuse recovery, that list is out there. I actually should start providing a flyer too. There is a new resource. It's called the Adolescent Adolescent Addiction Recovery Center, and it's through Children's Hospital from their Troy campus. So that is a new substance abuse.
Really nice resource.
Yes, I've been hearing good things about it so far. So that's I just don't have the flyers out there. But if you have questions, my card is up there. You can contact me. If you're looking for those, more information on those types of resources, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely.
Just one thing to add to Lauren's comments there. So with Clarkston Youth Assistance, we are located inside the middle school, so she will come. So if your student is in the district, then she will go to the high school or to the junior high or to the middle school or whatever and meet with your student as well. So there's even during the school day. So, you don't have to travel or anything like that. And you can also meet with her there. So
amazing. Absolutely. And so one quick thing before I let everyone go, I really want to give a challenge to parents, and that is to have that conversation, that open, honest conversation with your child about the impacts of marijuana and the impact that it can have on their developing brain. Then you can come back and tell me, they said, Mom, Dad, I know, or however they respond, right? So thank you all so much for weathering the storm. This was great. You all were phenomenal. Like I said, whether it was 40 of us, we had a really good time, and I so appreciate everyone. If you need any additional resources or have any additional questions, I am available after, so please feel free to talk to me. I love to talk.
Thank you.
Also, if you guys grab a survey, we just ask that you fill out a little evaluation, give us some feedback, and send in one of our sign-in sheets too. Just helps keep track of our attendance. So thank you so much.